Yeah.
All right, we're on.
We're on.
Oh wait, let me spotlight you, Caleb.
Do you have the PowerPoint ready?
I do, but I'm gonna spotlight you first. Here you go.
Well, I love teaching these lessons, facilitating these lessons. Put a lot of work into them because I get bored and I want them to get better every time. This is a video, if it plays, and I hope it will, that I think you'll really appreciate. This to me was such a great picture of what this journey through unresolved grief can look like. So let's be hopeful. Yeah.
Go ahead and mute yourself, by the way.
Yeah, there's not really meant to be a whole lot of sound. But you get the picture. You get the idea of what's happening here. By the way, I didn't mean to actually just jump right in without saying we have a new person here tonight. At least one. Elise Toller is here. Thank you so much, Kieran, for introducing your sister to us and making sure we didn't, holy cow, dude. So Elise, welcome. Woo! Yay! We're so happy you're here. She's magnificent. Yeah. In my speaking group, I feel very honored. Elise, tell us your name, rank, serial number, favorite ice cream. Just tell us some fun stuff about you. Tell us anything you want about your older brother that could possibly and potentially embarrass him irreparably.
Well, my name is Elise. I do not know a serial number.
Hearty welcome indeed. All right, is there anyone else new here that I am not seeing? Okay. All right, sorry about that. Nah, that must be super obnoxious. And whoever gets to see this recording is gonna be like, what was that? But, oh well. So, the reason I love that video is I imagine that truck that you saw being you or the average MK. And I imagine all those sacks. What do you imagine where it was in those sacks? What do you think that was?
Negative experiences building up.
Yeah, absolutely. What I imagine being in those sacks is exactly that, not just flour or manioc or who knows what, sugar or whatever, but all the negative experiences that we collect as an MK. So what happens? Like, do anyone else agree that that truck was magnificently stacked? I mean, crazy. Yeah, I bet you that they might have been full of rice. I don't know. I just have to say, I'm very deeply impressed with whoever stacked that truck. Like, well done, right? But the point, right, is not for the rice or whatever that was to only get part way to its destination. Whoever ordered that or bought that or desired that to not do that was probably very frustrated and maybe should be here tonight hearing about unresolved grief when their truck tipped completely over and they were unable to get there. But see, that's what I think unresolved grief does to us. I've read lots of stories about lots of MKs who carry a lot of baggage from their past. And those are those stories that I've read, and those people that I know are the reason why I like doing these lessons with you guys. I'm a big, huge proponent of trauma healing, which you know, and I've done a lot of that stuff. But some of the stories that I've heard that really left an impression on me were in this TCK book that I was studying. And I was just really brokenhearted by some of the experiences that MKs have had. And those experiences translate into a life full of transition and grief and hardship. And while you're in the middle of it, going to school and in high school, etc., you don't always necessarily feel the full impact that it's going to have in your future. But if you do not deal with these experiences, you will inevitably have to at some point. And I know people personally who are still unpacking the trauma in their 30s and 40s that happened to them when they were your age. And I thought, what if we could have stopped that and avoid that by being willing as a group to talk about our grief and our hurt and confront it and face it? Because we know that it doesn't just go away. We probably would wish it would. We wish that time healed all wounds. But the reality is it just doesn't seem to. People who are having, people who thought that everything was okay, and then, they're taking their kid to school on their first day of school, and they break down in tears and just can't move forward because it triggers the experience that they had on their first day of school. But their first day of school wasn't walking their child into, kindergarten. Their first day of school was getting on an airplane and flying, 6 hours away from mom and dad and living in a boarding school situation for the next 6 months, which is what happened to my mom. And people who had these issues of grief and abandonment, and they didn't realize it. And then, they got married, and her husband was late coming home from work because he was stuck in traffic. And when he got home, she was crying on the floor, had packed up all his stuff, was convinced that he had died or had left her, and couldn't move forward. And these are the kind of griefs that stack over time. And when we live lives where we don't take time to stop and grieve and process and understand and notice what's happening, then that grief stacks up just like those bags of rice on that truck. And God, I'm telling you, has a spectacular destination for you. He has a place and a plan, and he wants to do incredible things in your life. And sometimes the way that we deal with grief can slam the brakes on what our plans are and what we're trying to go after. And we can tip over. And how long do you think it took for that truck to get where it was going after it tipped over? Some trucks, tip over like that, and that is the last hurrah. We all believe that if that was Josh Carlton's truck, it probably would have just tipped right back up and kept going, because that's just who he is, right? But some trucks, like I've seen trucks, they tip over and it's like, goodbye, fare thee well. But some trucks you can put work and maintenance into, you can jack them back up. Some of that rice never got where it was going. But the reality is, my hope, if you'll follow the analogy just a little bit further, is that in our journey this month, we can begin to take some of those bags of rice off, those griefs, experiences. I'm not saying you're going to be able to grieve every loss that you've had, but if you start now, if you start choosing to grieve some of them now, hopefully that truck doesn't tip over. And even more, hopefully you become the kind of person who can help take that grief, those sacks off of the other people. Because we all want to make it together. We all have that heart, man. I see it in our group. We all have that heart of sand that says, I may not be able to carry the ring, but I can carry you. I can carry you. And I know that there are moments in my life when I have been lost in grief, and I've been grateful for the people who have helped me grieve things. And I delight when God uses me to be that person for someone else. And I think what we're going to hopefully come out of at the end of these next 3 sessions is hopefully feeling a little lighter, hopefully having processed a little bit more of what God, the story that God has woven into our lives. Hopefully mourning, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Hopefully receiving a little bit more comfort from the Lord. And hopefully also, like in 2 Corinthians 1, being able to comfort people with the comfort we ourselves have received, and having tools that equip us to do that, because we're all in this together. So can someone read this slide? I think this slide really exemplifies a big part of why we do this. Who can read that for me?
I can.
Thank you.
Okay. For most MKs, the collection of significant losses and separations before the end of adolescence is often more than most people experience in a lifetime.
I don't know how many years I've been teaching this lesson, but it's like a lot. That still surprises me when I hear you read it. That's a hard truth. Most people experience in a lifetime by the end of adolescence. And the reason I think it's very important for some of you to really sit and pay attention to this is because it's easy for you, if you're someone who's gone through a lot of grief, to not recognize it. Why? Because if it's before the end of your adolescence, it's become your norm. And when it becomes normal for you, it's really hard for you to see it. It's like my sweet, wonderful little daughter, Serenity, sitting down and eating spaghetti. Her face becomes a delightful collage of everything that she's eating. And she doesn't know it. She doesn't see it. She doesn't understand that her face is covered with red sauce. But when she goes to nuzzle into her dad's sweet little white shirt, there's an opportunity for grief. I then see it. And I think that's kind of what our grief can be like. Sometimes it becomes our norm, and we don't know that we're full of grief, but it absolutely changes our behavior, and it can get all over the people we love and care about. So I'm asking you to really take this seriously. You may feel like it's so normal for you because this is your life. But if this is really true for most MKs, then it may mean that that taking a serious opportunity to begin that grieving process is really, really important. Just like taking a nice wet paper towel and wiping Serenity's face before she comes and gives me a big hug is often very, very positive for me in moving forward with my evening. So let's go ahead and go to the next screen. So this is a real question. Interact with me here a little bit. What is unresolved grief? And why do you think there's so much of it?
It's like grief that you've buried, or like, I guess you go through a hard time and you don't grieve it properly, and so it's just kind of buried underneath. And why is there so much of it? Maybe because people don't like to express their emotions and true feelings about things.
It's really good, Judith.
Also, I think because
Really good.
people simply don't like to actually let themselves feel sadness because it's more pleasant to be happy.
The blue giant relates to that. Yes, I absolutely feel that.
It can be seen as being weak to grieve over things.
That's really good. Good, Kieran. True. Do you think our culture encourages grieving? No?
I don't think so. I'm not sure though.
Nod has a point. I can see her thinking.
I think maybe our culture encourages sometimes a healthy form, but also sometimes an unhealthy form of grieving, like pity. Maybe. But every once in a while I see it encouraging a healing sort of grieving.
Yeah. It's a good point. Thanks for sharing that, Nod. Appreciate that. Any other thoughts?
I think sometimes we don't share our grief because we don't want to burden others with it.
That's really
We
good.
feel like I'll just deal with it myself because I don't want anybody else to have to worry about it.
Why are you always exposing me, guys? I feel that one too all the time. A, I just want to have fun, and B, I don't want to burden you guys. Oh man.
Maybe
Anyone
they
else
don't
relate?
think it's very important.
Yes. Yep. These are great. These are some great answers. Let's move on. Let's keep exploring this.
One thing that comes to mind, I guess this is partially personal experience, but I think that sometimes we don't want to tell them because we're kind of mad at them because sometimes someone else is the source of grief or something like that. And you're just mad at them, kind of.
That's a really
In a
good
way.
point, Luke. I love that you said that, and we are going to get into that later on. That's really, really good. Okay, so we're going to try this video. If the sound isn't there, we can either keep trying it, and you guys might recognize it, but we could also skip it. It's up to you, Nod. I'll leave that up to your discernment.
There's a little issue because if you can't hear it, I can't know that you can't hear it because I can hear it. So if you can't, then be louder than my computer is to me. Okay?
Okay.
Make sure you share your audio as well. If you just share the video, then it's not going to play very well. It's
It
only gonna
looks
play
like
through
it's
your
sharing
mic.
audio. It has the little audio icon.
Yeah.
As
I
long
did
as you're
click
doing that, you should be fine.
Okay.
I hear it.
Okay, not what I had in mind. Hey, look, the Golden Gate Bridge. Isn't that great? It's not made out of solid gold like we thought, which is kind of a disappointment, but still.
I sure am glad you told me earthquakes are a myth, Joy. Otherwise, I'd be terrified right now.
Yeah.
These are my kind of people. All right, just a few more blocks. We're almost to our new house. Step on it, Daddy.
Why don't we just live in this smelly car? We've already been in it forever. Which actually was really lucky because that gave us plenty of time to think about what our new house is going to look like. What? Let's review the top 5 daydreams.
Ooh, that looks safe.
Nice. Oh, this will be great for Riley. Oh, no. This one. Joy, for the last time, she cannot live in a cookie.
That's the one. It comes with a dragon.
We're getting close. I can feel it. There it is. Here's our new house. And... maybe it's nice on the inside.
We're supposed to live here?
I'm telling you, it smells like something dead in here.
Did you die from moving?
Guys, you're overreacting. Nobody is dying. A dead mouse!
Ah, great.
I'm gonna be
It's
sick.
the house of the dead. What are we gonna do? We're gonna get rabies. Get off of me!
Hey, all through the drive, Dad talked about how cool our new room is. Let's go check it out.
It's gonna be great. Yes. No.
I'm starting to envy the dead mouse.
Get out the rubber ball. We're in solitary confinement.
Riley can't live here.
He's right.
It's the worst.
Really bad.
It's absolutely the worst.
This house
It's the
stinks.
worst place I've ever been in my entire life.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, it's nothing our butterfly curtains couldn't fix. I read somewhere that an empty room is an opportunity.
Where did you read that?
It doesn't matter. I read it, and it's great. We'll put the bed there, and the desk over there.
Yeah, the hockey lamp goes there. Put the chair there.
Well, the trophy cloth
Over there. Poster there.
Stars.
We need more
Yeah,
I like that.
Now we're talking. Let's go get our stuff from the moving van.
All right. Well, guess what? The moving van won't be here until Thursday.
You're kidding.
Oh,
the
van is
lost! The van is lost. You said it would be here yesterday.
I know that's what I said. That's what they told me.
They're stressed out.
They're stressed out. What are we gonna do?
What is their problem? I've got a great idea! Did you even read the contract? Anderson makes her move. She's closing in.
Hey. Oh, no, you're
She's
not.
lining up for the shot.
Coming behind you. Watch out.
And she scored! Yeah! Grandma. Grandma? Uh-oh, she put her hair up. We're in for it. Hey!
So why does every MK love this movie and relate to it and say it's 10 million out of 10? Man, everyone can be like, that's my story. Well, it probably is a little bit for many of us who have made these transitions. We can really relate. And some of us are probably big fans of each different color. We have our joy fans and we have our, I don't know, maybe no one is a sad fan, but maybe someone is. They're always like, yeah, sadness knows what life's really about.
Sadness is my favorite.
And then the anger one, someone's like, anger, he's the guy. And
He's
some of
pretty funny.
you probably need help. Anyway, so the question is, when you watch that clip, how does that help us answer this question? How does grief get lost in transition? What do you think?
I think of when they're in the room and all of them are pressing the buttons all at once. And so it's just flashing, 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 and things are coming in and they're all different. And so it gets lost because there's a lot happening all at the same time. And it can be hard to pull a certain thing out.
Yeah, there's so much emotion that it's really hard to just see what all is going on because it's all happening like super like fast and crowded.
That is so good, Olivia and Noah. Thank you. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. What else? What else do you see there that maybe contributes to grief getting lost in transition? Do you see some of the waves that she went through?
Something that I see is how Joy is like very like controlling of the situation. Like when things aren't like going happy, she tries to like steer it back. So like Riley can't be sad. Like Riley can't have this grief. She got to be happy in this.
It's really good, Kieran. That's really good. And that's sort of the waves, right? So what's the first wave that you notice? We're so excited to get here. And then what?
It's a disappointment. Her house is like sort of, she shows up and she's like, this isn't what I was expecting, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're excited for the move. And then when you get there, it's like, have any of you ever felt that way?
I mean, to be fair, I'd be pretty disappointed if I didn't get a house with a dragon.
I love the road trip. And then it's like, and now we're stuck in traffic. And I don't know why that's the wave I noticed, but maybe as someone who drives more than all of you, that would be so annoying. But yeah, the house. Well, maybe it's, what does she say? It goes, maybe, the house. How does she help solve that wave?
She's like, well, maybe the inside's good.
Right. Then she gets inside, and where's the next wave? What's the next thing she does?
Maybe our room can be decorated well.
Before that, right? Oh, yeah, okay, maybe she does say that. And then what does she say?
Maybe our room will be better.
Right, maybe my room will be really great. And then immediately it goes to,
let's decorate the room. And then wait, we can't decorate the room because the moving van is not here. It went to Texas or wherever that.
Right. We have wave after wave after wave. And that gets us to our next slide. Who can read this? Who can read this one to me?
Transition brings so many confusing emotions. Sometimes leaving is really hard, but it's also exciting. When we deny how hard transition is and only focus on how exciting it can be, we aren't dealing with our grief, we are ignoring it. And ignoring it does not make it go away.
That's why the waves are really tricky. There is some grief in, oh, this house wasn't what I was hoping it would be. And that's okay. It's okay to grieve that. We don't have to complain and whine and be a big jerk about it and say, I'm going to burn this house down. We don't have to go that far. But it's okay to grieve that. It's okay also to grieve, well, this room, my dad talked about this room being really, really great, but it's not what I thought it would be. The problem with the waves is they try and trick us into always moving forward to a happier place. And it's not that she doesn't get to a happier place and now she's playing hockey, and it's not that we want to focus on all the bad stuff. It's that when we pass through the stuff that's really hard without actually grieving it, how many rice sacks do you think got put on the back of her truck in that scene?
At least 5.
At least 5.
And the way I like to look at it is the fact that, like, basically before she can grieve it all, she instantly extinguishes all the sadness and looks forward to the next new moment that could be good. And that just piles it up for later.
There you go. That's really well said, Noah. Well said. And I think that would begin to start seeing where all this unresolved grief can come from. And I wonder if you've ever felt that way in one of your transitions. Maybe it happened so fast for you, you didn't really even notice it. I think someone talked about that earlier. Maybe that was Kieran, but it all happens. We're feeling stuff all the time. And then we're trying not to sit. No one wants to go back. I think we talked about that initially. No one wants to go and be sad and sit there in the sad parts. But those of you who have watched the rest of this movie know what happens if you choose not to ever do that. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Who can read that for me?
I can.
Thank you.
Until we can acknowledge and mourn for our past, we won't be free from that grief. People are complex and can feel happy and sad at the same time.
We have lovingly become, I think, I don't know, was it last year or a couple of years ago, I gave you guys 2 ducks. There's the yay duck and the yuck duck. Have you heard about that? It's a paradox. It's a paradox.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Right. So that's one way that people like to talk about this. I can feel really happy and I can feel really sad. Can you remember a time like that in your life where you felt 2 really strong emotions?
A lot of COVID where I felt really happy, like, yay, I get to spend a bunch of time with family, and really sad, no, I don't get to do anything that's social, and I don't get to see people except for it's on the screen and like different stuff like that.
When Josh decided to leave.
Today, that's really a good example. Go ahead, Eden.
When Josh decided to leave.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's the most recent example I can think of, obviously, that being like an hour ago, but.
Oh, that's a really good one. That's really
Feels
good.
very similar to what Noah said. Like, on the one hand, like, COVID stinks and like there are a lot of things I missed out on. But if it weren't for COVID, like, MK wouldn't be on Zoom and I wouldn't have gotten to go again.
That's really good, Kieran. Yeah. The paradox of life, the paradoxes of life can make it really hard to notice the things in our life that we need to grieve sometimes. They can just get lost. And you can just keep adding those rice sacks to the truck. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. So we call those grieves. Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Lou, for sharing that. That's very vulnerable. So when we talk about griefs, we grieve things that we lose, big or small. What are the hidden losses, do you think, that happen? What are your hidden losses? Did you see, first, let's just start like, did you see any hidden losses in that video clip that we just watched? No, Caleb, all those losses were very obvious and pointed out. Yes.
I mean, it is a movie.
Exactly.
What do you mean by hidden losses, though?
So the losses that we like, that are really hard for us to see and notice as they're happening. Losses that are covered up by other emotions and other feelings, by the paradox.
For me, at least, I think we may go into this later, so sorry, spoiler alert.
No, go ahead.
For me, the thing that I feel like I've lost the most, that was a hidden loss to me until I went back and visited some of my friends in Arkansas, was this idea of the future that wasn't, or the idea of, what could have happened if I stayed? What about all the things I missed out on? And those are things you can't know about. They're hidden to you until they happen, and you're not there. So I think for me, that was a major loss. And a couple of times ago, like a year ago or so, we went back to Arkansas, and it became like clear to me, like, wow, look at all this stuff that I could have been a part of in my friends' lives, and look at all the stuff that happened that I didn't get to be a part of. So I think that's sort of a hidden loss that we don't really recognize until it's something we've already missed.
That is a really good example, Aiden. Thank you. Yeah.
I think it happened over, like, it was actually, I haven't thought about this too much before, but I think one for me was confidence in meeting new people. Because when I was like 10 or 11, like I was really outgoing and I was able to talk to people, and now it's gotten harder to just go up to a stranger and say hello and get to know them on a basic level. It takes more courage. It's just not as natural. So I guess I lost some of that confidence after moving so much.
That is really powerful, Olivia. Thank you for sharing that. Wow. Someone mentioned in the chat something about, like, Joe, you said that was something you've been feeling all semester, hidden losses from not being able to be there in person, I'm guessing. I think that's really, really meaningful that you said that, because I do think that COVID probably has brought a lot of hidden loss into our lives. Yeah. And may still continue to. That's really powerful. Yeah. That's good, guys. That's really good. All right, let's go to the next slide. When your world disappears and a new one begins, how do you feel? The reason I ask this question is because people actually feel very differently about this same thing. So how do you feel?
A bit disoriented.
Yeah.
And when I moved to America, it felt a bit like kind of detached and unreal, but like everything just suddenly changed, and my past was so far away now that we'd been on an airplane for 20 some hours. And then here it was suddenly new and it was different, and I felt in the present here, but the whole move itself seemed unreal.
Thank you, Vera. That is a great insight. That's powerful. And I like that you said that. Disorientation absolutely can contribute to hidden loss, can't it?
So this is weird because I think you said this, but a lot of what I feel like a lot of this has to do with your personality and how you handle change.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I don't handle change well at all. Anyone who knows me well will tell you I like to have a routine, I like to have a schedule, and I like to have things set in. But when we moved to Texas, I was actually very optimistic. I was, I was very positive. I was like, well, I get to start over. I get to build a new community. Who could I get to know? What's going to happen? So I think, at least for me, there was definitely some optimism.
Mhm.
And I think as time went on, like I'd talk to people about it and I'd be like, yeah, I used to be really nervous, but now I'm like, well, there's a lot of stuff that could happen. I think so. It was definitely, there's a lot of sadness, but there's definitely some optimism. Also, I didn't move very far, so I think disorientation isn't as much of a part of it for me, at least.
For me, when like my world disappears and the new one begins, I'm very resistant to it. Like I liked the world I was in. It was comfortable in that world. I'd gotten used to it. That was my world. I don't want a new world. So I'm usually very resistant.
It's really good. Thanks for sharing, Aiden, and thanks for sharing, Kieran. That makes a lot of sense. I think that, thank you, Nod. No, go ahead. That was right. I think that this is a really good practice, and I want to give you, if you have something you can do this with on your phone or a piece of paper or just making a mental list, maybe as I'm talking even, of the things that have disappeared from your world. I think that's one of the things that I wonder. I even think when MK transitioned onto Zoom and we could no longer meet in person, I wonder what all the hidden losses were. Like there were some really obvious losses, right? Like I can't see people face to face anymore. Yeah, I feel for you, Luke. And there are a lot of obvious losses in that transition. But I wonder if some of you didn't recognize some of the hidden losses until maybe girls group could start meeting up again, or guys group could start meeting up again. And maybe the total quantity of our losses won't necessarily maybe even be recognizable until we're all able to meet back together again in the event center or someplace, sometime hopefully very, very soon. And I wonder, like, I think about this, what we've been talking about, Josh, right? And his transition that's very fresh and very new, and tonight being his last, something in his world is completely changing. And I wonder how long it will take him to see some of the, the things that are missing in that transition, not only for him, but for us. And I think, so what's important here is in any kind of transition that we're noticing, to recognize a few things, that there are probably more things being lost than the big obvious things that stare you in the face. And that those things, no matter what they are things that need to be grieved in some way. And the quicker and better, and the quicker we can get to a place where we can recognize them, the quicker we will get to a place where we are grieving and have grieved through them. So that's why it's make a list of the things that have disappeared from your world. Yeah, that's really tough. Having a desire to do things and not having anyone share those desires can be very lonely. So does anyone want to share just a few things that have disappeared from your world?
One thing, like I guess was partially a hidden loss from moving on Zoom MK, is that just not being able to hug y'all and just like not being able to just come and see you guys and just like, I don't know, that's one thing that has been really sad to not happen anymore because of COVID and the entire situation.
Raise your hand if you can relate to missing hugs. Yeah. No, you're in good
I
company.
legit started crying when my mom said I couldn't hug anyone at MK anymore. I was very sad.
That's really sad.
I think something for me with the MK is like I miss the comfort of community, because right now I'm kind of isolated. I don't see very many people. I'm still stuck in my house most of the time, and so I really miss being able to like go places regularly and see people regularly, and having that community and that comfort, that knowing that I'm not alone and that I have people with me. I'm thankful there is still ways that I can feel that comfort, but sometimes I tend to feel lonely, especially if I go like for weeks or a week, not seeing people because you have to quarantine or you got exposed or something like that. So yeah, that's a big one.
Thanks, Judith. I really appreciate you sharing that. You're right. You know, Luke wrote in the chat, I miss small talk. And I think that's a really great example of something that could be a hidden loss. It's something that's easy to overlook. I understand what you're saying, man. I get it. Like when we think of MK, we don't necessarily think of the small talk, but there is so much about MK that happens on either side of MK that, like, you know, I'm so grateful that Nod is such a servant and willing to stay and just hang out with you guys for like 30 minutes after it's over to give you back some of that small talk. I miss White Rhino and Black. Yeah, I miss so many of those events too. I loved connecting with you guys at those events. And I think one of my hidden losses that isn't going to be hidden, I'll just start grieving this now, is beating Josh at chess with an audience of MKs. I mean, there is nothing better than, okay, never mind. Let's move on, guys. Come on.
I've been there for some of your wins. You got at least one person.
One of the things that isn't necessarily, that can or cannot be hidden, but is a loss, is your loss of status. You know, so what was Riley's status that she lost?
Hockey.
Hockey, absolutely. She was really good at hockey. And I think that, like, how did it change for her? She got to still play hockey, right? But no one really knew her, right? No one knew how good she was. Or did it take some time for her to be able to play again? Help me remember.
I think, well, yeah, she was still able to play, but I think the biggest thing for her was probably the loss of status as a leader when playing hockey. Because for any of those of you who know, you know, who play team sports for an extended amount of time, you know, being a leader is a big part of playing sports, and it's a big part of being able to do well and compete. And you know, her inability to do that because she doesn't know the other players or the other people she's around, and she can't relate to them or talk to them, is probably, you know, that's what I found was probably her biggest, I guess, yeah, status change, or probably her biggest grief over her status change.
Yeah. Yeah. Nod, I want to give you a heads up here. We're not at this point yet, but I'm going to ask you in, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes to split people up into like three, maybe groups of three. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe take a second and think of the different statuses that you have had and how those statuses have changed. Like her being a hockey player and how that has changed over the course of her transition. Can you think of any status changes? Even status changes as a result of COVID. That's huge. In what ways has this transition, this very recent, changed your status?
This isn't necessarily COVID, but like when I go to a new place, like, for example, like when I go to the States and go to church and Sunday school, things like that, like I lose status, like just from like in Mexico where I'm with my friends to where I'm with strangers and acquaintances. Like I lose my status as a friend to a stranger or an acquaintance, because that's what I am to these people. They don't know me and I don't know them, so I'm not a friend. I'm more like an acquaintance.
It's really good, Kieran. Yeah, thank you. That's a really good point. And that's a very relevant status, you know, just the status of being known. I think for me, one of the statuses that really changed, that really rocked my world, was the status of being a guy who was able to travel and go all over the world into different places. That has completely changed in my life. Can you think of any other statuses?
I used to babysit, and now I don't babysit, and I really miss my kiddos.
Wow, Judith, that's huge. All right, let's flip to the next one if you're able, Nod. Sorry, I know you're multitasking right now. I appreciate it. And let's go ahead because we already did that, yeah. So loss of, one more. Loss of lifestyle. How has your lifestyle changed through your transitions? Kieran, maybe you can weigh in on this, since your lifestyle probably has changed a little bit from like kind of bad, dry, not really good tamales to the fresh on the street tamales that you know and love. I'm sure that's, I mean, they're both still not very good, but I'm sure that's an improvement in tamale status. But all joking aside, how has your lifestyle changed as you've moved back to Mexico?
From like being in the States?
Yeah, from being in the States.
Well, I mean, it's been kind of different because we got back to Mexico, then COVID hit. So it's like when I was in the States, like I was ready to be back in Mexico. Like I was hyping it up in my mind, getting ready, all the things that I was going to do. And then I got back to Mexico and like almost none of those things got to happen because of COVID.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you sharing that, man. Someone asked, do things that haven't yet happened yet count? And I would say they can. And actually, if you're able to recognize them now, you don't want to like blow them up and get all freaked out about them, but it will help you grieve them better probably when they happen. And so we can anticipate transitions, and we talk about this, and when we talk about transition, and that can bring grief, and then that grief can cause us to withdraw, because and we'll talk about that too. That's a response that people have when they grieve, is they withdraw. And so we don't want to like anticipate a loss and then go into grieving withdrawal mode and then completely make it 5 times worse than it could otherwise have been. But yeah, it is possible to start thinking about, oh my goodness, I'm graduating out of MK, and that's so sad, because I mean, I get it, guys. We are worth missing. But you know, different things like that can happen, and you can start pre-grieving. And so it's important that can be helpful to keep you maybe from missing hidden losses, but it can also be detrimental if it causes you to change the way you're acting and miss out on experiences that could have been, kind of like what Aiden was talking about, if you had just chosen to be present. So that's my 2 cents on that. Let's go ahead and go through the next couple here.
You cut me off. I was going to answer the last
one. All right, no, Aiden, please go ahead.
I feel like this is a little weird, but the lifestyle change that I experienced the most, or the loss of lifestyle, was when we moved to Texas, and this is something I'm still somewhat bitter about. The weather got a lot hotter, which for those of you who know me, you know I really don't like hot weather. I prefer cold weather, and it's very warm here. So during the summer, I can't really do anything, and that used to be when I spent the most time outside. And I spent the most time enjoying the weather and doing stuff with my neighbors or with my friends. It would be during the summer, and that's not really an option in Texas when it's 105 degrees and you're going to melt like a popsicle because you're a teenage boy. So it's not. Sometimes I feel like the loss of lifestyle. Like I honestly think moving was. I'm still, you know, I'm still a little bitter about it sometimes, where I'm like, dang, it's too hot to do anything outside, because it just feels like sometimes you just feel defeated, I guess. I don't know. So that was the main loss of lifestyle I had. I know that's nothing super emotional, but that's just what I observed.
Well, Aiden, that's a really big deal. I mean, that's a good point. And big or small, it's a real grief.
Oh yeah.
And I'm glad you're recognizing that. Well done. Let's move past what do you miss, what don't you miss. How about possessions? Yeah, we got snow, yay. Are there any possessions that you lost when you've moved? Lost in transition? Can you think of any?
While they make me cringe so much remembering them, my old sketchbooks, because I used to draw a whole lot, and so by the time we would move next, I would have like 5, and we couldn't take them all. There's only so much fit in the box, so it would be nice to look at them again just for nostalgia's sake, and also cringe at them because they were probably terrible. But still.
Oh, still, that's a huge loss. Absolutely, Olivia. That is rough. In fact, if you want to, why don't you just throw up in the chat bar if you have them? You can just throw up in the chat a few possessions. Yeah. That is really tough, Joe. Wow. I mean, I've lost a lot of sacred items in my life that have been really hard for me.
You lost your machete, right?
I have lost many machetes, and that has been very sad. The impact has been sadness. All right, let's do one more slide, and then I'm going to put you in groups to pray, and we'll close today in prayer. I can't see, Creed. Can you just give me, yeah. This might be one of the most, I lost the zipper up to a pillow. That's interesting. Loss of relationship can maybe be one of the more painful ones. Yeah, that is really tough, dude. That's like a sacred object right there. A beloved pillow. Oof. My favorite plush at the time, yeah. What relationships have you lost that maybe were really hard for you to lose? Really meaningful? Yeah, Judith's like on the nose, Caleb. Everyone just say Josh. And now let's move on. What other relationships have been difficult?
Well, when we lived in South Carolina, I had an old best friend, and once we left, we never really talked again.
That's really hard. Thanks, Elise, for sharing that. That's tough. Yeah. A lot of your relationships with friends at school. Yeah.
One of my best friends from elementary school, personally, his name was Jack. He's a really nice guy, but I haven't seen or spoken to him since we moved, which is kind of sad for me because I just haven't seen him, and I don't know a ton what he's like. I saw him like I take that back. I've seen him once since we moved, but it wasn't very long, so I don't know. I felt like our relationship sort of went out the window.
Thanks for sharing that, Aiden. Guys, thank you for really participating tonight. It has meant a lot to me to share in this grief with you. My hope and my prayer for you tonight is that you have been able to unload, if it's even just one kernel of rice, been able to unload something, and that you don't feel alone. It's so valuable to take time to grieve the things that you've lost. So what I want to do now, I want to close our night this way, is Nadia is going to put you in a much smaller group, like maybe three people or something small. Is that what you did, Nad? Something tiny?
Yeah, 2 to 3.
2 to 3. Thank you so much. And so I want you to just spend a few minutes with each other, praying and talking with each other about these griefs and giving them to the Lord. Like, not that that's going to necessarily magically take all of the pain and hurt away, but absolutely, I will definitely do that. Yeah. But just giving them, just consciously saying, God, it really hurt when these things happened, and I want to give these to you, and doing it together and praying for each other and encouraging each other to end the night. Before we do that, I want to let Aiden share something.
Yeah, so I guess you guys can keep this in mind and pray about it once you go into your groups. But I already shared this with the hospitality group. Today I had a basketball game. For those of you who don't know, previously I've hurt my knee many times. And today I had a basketball game, and while we were warming up, I went up for a layup, and I landed and my knee buckled and it got messed up again. So I haven't been able to walk really a ton at all. I was